Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving headfirst into a really fascinating and kind of cryptic vision from the book of Revelation. It's all about four powerful angels holding back four destructive winds. We're going to explore how this ancient prophecy might just connect to a very puzzling military decision that, believe it or not, ended up saving thousands of lives during the fall of Jerusalem. So let's jump right in. So the vision kicks off with this incredibly powerful scene from Revelation. You've got four angels holding back what it calls the four winds of the earth. But these clearly aren't just any winds. So the big question is, what destructive force do they actually represent? And why in the world are these angels being told to hold it all back? That is the mystery we're unpacking today. All right, so first, let's look at what's really happening here. This is a vision of delay. The whole point of the angels holding on isn't about controlling the weather. It's a prophecy about a divine pause, a moment of quiet that would have enormous consequences. And here's the first big piece of the puzzle. The winds here aren't literal. In this interpretation, they're a powerful symbol for the violent, chaotic, and destructive forces of war. So you have to picture this. The angels aren't just stopping a storm. They're literally holding back armies, preventing a massive, bloody conflict from just erupting. Now, this wasn't just some random act. The text in Revelation 7 is super specific about why this is happening. It says, "Hurt not the earth, till we have sealed the servants of our God." This sealing is basically a mark of divine protection. So holding back these winds of war, it had one very specific purpose: to create a temporary window of peace, just long enough to protect God's followers before an absolute catastrophe was unleashed. So where do we see this in history? I mean, it's a great story, but does it connect to anything real? Well, this particular interpretation connects the prophecy directly to one of the most brutal conflicts of the ancient world, the First Jewish-Roman War. Okay, so here's the timeline. The war kicks off in 66 AD. Now, pay close attention to that event in October of 66. We are definitely coming back to that. This all leads to the arrival of Vespasian's massive army in 67 AD, and, of course, culminates in the total destruction of Jerusalem and its temple in 70 AD. It was an absolutely brutal, nation-ending war. So what was the spark that lit this massive fire? Well, tensions were already sky-high, but they just exploded when the Roman procurator, a guy named Gessius Florus, decided to plunder 17 talents from the Jewish temple treasury. The protests that followed were met with a brutal crackdown, crucifixions and raids, which pushed the entire Judean population into open, violent rebellion. And this is where the prophecy gets kind of spooky specific. Remember the part about the four corners of the earth? Well, when Rome sent its main force under Vespasian to crush the rebellion, the legions were drawn from all over the empire. As you can see right here, Syria, Serbia, Turkey, Hungary. It was, quite literally, an army gathered from the four winds. This brings us to the absolute core of this whole interpretation, a really bizarre and historically puzzling military decision. I mean, from a tactical standpoint, it makes zero sense. But from a prophetic one, it might just be the key. So before Vespasian and his huge campaign, the first Roman response was led by a general named Cestius Gallus. He marches on Jerusalem, he breaches the outer walls, and he has the city completely surrounded. Victory was a sure thing. And then, for no logical reason anyone can find, he ordered a full retreat. Why? Why on earth would a Roman general just abandon a certain victory? The historian Josephus, who was an eyewitness to all of this, was completely baffled by the decision. This commentary here offers a theological explanation. It was divine intervention. According to this view, God himself stopped the war from ending right then and there. In other words, the winds of war were being actively held back. So if the retreat really was a divine act, what was the point? Well, the whole purpose was to open a critical, life-saving window for a very specific group of people. People who were listening to a warning that was given years before. You see, Christ had given this very specific instruction to his followers decades earlier. He said, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, don't fight, don't wait, flee, get out of the city and get into the mountains immediately. This was the signal that judgment was about to fall. And right here, this is the key connection. The siege under Cestius Gallus was the sign to get ready. But his sudden, inexplicable retreat, that was the actual opportunity to escape. This was the moment, according to this interpretation, that the angels held back the winds, giving those who understood the warning their one chance to act on it.
I mean, just look at the massive difference this made. Before the retreat, Christians in Jerusalem were totally trapped, facing the exact same horrible fate as everyone else. But after the retreat, they recognized the sign, and historical accounts tell us they fled the city for safe havens like Pella. They got out just before the real storm arrived.
But that window of mercy, it didn't stay open forever. Once the servants of God were safe, the prophetic timeline moved into its final destructive phase. The angel's mission to delay was officially over. So let's just walk through the whole sequence, step by step. First, the angels hold back the winds. That's Gallus's strange retreat. Second, the servants are sealed, which means the Christians escape. Third, the winds are finally unleashed. That's Vespasian's massive army arriving a year later. And finally, the land, the sea, the trees are hurt, a direct reference to the complete and utter destruction of Judea. So let's just sum it all up. In this view, the vision in Revelation 7 isn't about some far-off future. It's a direct prophecy of the events of 66 AD. An angelic intervention causes a baffling Roman retreat, which gives Christians the sign and the opportunity to flee Jerusalem. And once they were safely out, the full winds of war were unleashed by Vespasian's legions, bringing the prophesied judgment down on the city. And all of this leaves us with a final thought. When you can map a prophecy onto a specific, detailed historical event like this, it can completely transform how you understand the text. It shifts from being just a prediction about the distant future to a vivid, almost real-time commentary on the past. So the question to think about is, how does seeing prophecy through a historical lens change the way we read these ancient and powerful words?